link up, so welcome everyone, at least those who are in the hall. And thank you to those who are connected via Zoom. And I believe we are there, and the control room is going to confirm whether we are connected with Europe, the United States, especially with Córdoba. Let's see what we have. It seems that we are well linked up, so welcome everyone.
Allora, intanto è un onore iniziare questo convegno che abbraccia.
First of all, it's an honor to begin this meeting which embraces the entirety of the world, particularly a greeting to all you who are linked up online and who are present here in the hall in Castel Gandolfo and in Córdoba. I would like to embrace everybody in my greeting. I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to be able to talk together, not only academically speaking, but there are a range of students here with us and in Córdoba, many colleagues, as well as many people who are engaged in environments and other dimensions of science who have helped us. And for me, as I said, it's an honor, both as a teacher of ecology and as a coordinator of Net One. I teach at the university in Campania, and we are uniting Rome and Córdoba in a form of dialogue. I would like to thank all the universities who have supported us. The San Camillo University Center, the Catholic University Sacro Cuore, the Dalmosla de Almeida University Center, the School of Training Es LUMSA, Catholic University of Córdoba, the Sofia University Institute, and the Institute of Biosciences of the University of São Paulo. I would like to also thank international associations such as the Laudato Si movement, CLAIS, African Europe Faith and Justice Network, who with their patronage have given prestige and value to our meeting. I would like to also express gratitude to the Mandela Associated, which is an American consultancy company on the environment, and the United and the European Union, who with the AFRESH funding have made the sustainability of this meeting possible from a practical point of view. And then, of course, I thank all of you who are present here physically in Castel Gandolfo and Córdoba, but also all of you who are linked up online, for having contributed with your participation to make this international meeting possible. The topic of sustainability, relational sustainability, which unites us today, comes from an awareness. This is the awareness that every living being, so every social and economic system and every natural system are linked by deep relationships. Environmental crises, along with social and economic inequality, cannot be dealt with in isolation. We find ourselves before a complex challenge which requires an integrated and multidisciplinary approach where natural sciences and human sciences encounter and complete one another. Sustainability is not an issue of protecting the environment. It implies the building of a new harmony amongst peoples, societies, and economic models. This meeting explores, or wishes to explore, as experts in the various fields: art, communication, law, ecology, economics, medicine, teaching sciences, politics, psychology, and sport, how we can cooperate together in order to identify solutions which bear in mind these connections. Only an approach in synergy will allow us to open up new outlooks in order to be able to resolve the current environmental crisis. In ECHO 1, a cultural initiative which comes about in the Focolare movement, we have always believed in the importance of a holistic vision. Our network of teachers, researchers, and professionals who are active in environmental sciences throughout the world is firmly convinced that the solution cannot be limited to the reduction of emissions or the development of sustainable technologies. It is necessary to change the way we live, the way in which we interact, in which we relate with the environment. And this is where the concept of relational sustainability becomes central. This idea is not just an abstract concept. It's a practice which is based on the importance of relationships among us, with society, and with nature. Only by directing our actions towards the common good will we be able to table effectively the challenges which await us. Today, thanks to the contributions and the dialogue which will follow, we will have the opportunity to listen to authoritative voices coming from various fields of investigation, which will offer us a rich and multifaceted view of the interactions between natural sciences and human sciences. This exchange is essential. It is essential in order to bring about a new synthesis able to guide us towards a more sustainable future. The path we have in front of us is very hard indeed, but these initiatives feed hope. A hope in a world where every person, every ecosystem, and every community are recognized as part of a whole which is interconnected. Therefore, I still once again thank those present, our guests, our staff, and I wish everybody profitable proceedings in the certainty that the reflections we share these days will contribute concretely to the building of a more just and sustainable world for everyone. I give the floor to Professor Luca Fiorani, who will moderate the first session of this meeting and will open up our proceedings. Thank you. Thank you, Stefania. Thank you, Stefania. I too, a brief introduction. I am a professor of sustainability at Sofia, which is why Stefania called me professor, but my main job is research in a public body in Italy in science and technology. To simplify things, I have been seconded at the European Union in order to deal with ecological research. So I deal with the environment and ecology. How does the idea of this panel come about? Well, it collates many fields of investigation, and it comes from here. When the idea of relational sustainability came about in 2021, it was born as a concept, let's hope, as Stefania generously said, a new vision, a new synthesis, and even more hopefully, we could say a new paradigm. Anyway, it came about as a transdisciplinary concept, something across the board. At the time, we evoked the 12 fields that many of you know as those called the fifth dialogue of the Focolare movement. The first idea happening was exactly this one. And we wanted to give space in this meeting to all these spheres of investigation to develop what started off as an intuition and see whether it becomes something else. And something we could humbly transmit to the world today. So we are on time, and we begin with this quick overview. There will be 3 contributions, then we will have a breather, and so on until we reach the total number of 12. The speakers know who they are, both the online ones and the ones here. They have 1 minute to present themselves, and they have 5 minutes to tell the story of how their field of action can give this contribution. And therefore, we begin with an online connection, and we have 3 contributions. We have Renzo Andric, Sandri Isla, and Isabel Gatti. They will speak in Italian, and we have translation, and Sandy and Isa will speak in Spanish, so we thank them for their contribution.
So, dear greeting from Belluno, my town from northern Italy. Professionally, always worked on accessibility to environment and technologies for people with disability. That is why the title of my contribution is the virtual environment and established, structured environment. So I will begin with a quotation from a manual of architecture by an Italian journalist called Franco Bonprezzi, a well-known advocate of human rights and himself a person with disability. He wrote, "If I were Beelzebub, the devil, and I had to decide which category of people to place in the darkest and most terrifying part of hell, I would certainly put architects. Do you know why? Because they are the main ones responsible for our disability. They are the ones who build the barriers that hinder our life." End of quotation. So this sentence expresses a very true concept, which does not only concern architects, but also engineers, as myself, and designers. In general, all those involved in the design of the built environment, like all services we use in daily life, operating systems, websites, online services, etc. And this sentence also highlights, also emphasized by the World Organization for Health, that disability is not an attribute of the person. It is a situation the person may experience when their physical or cognitive limits conflict with barriers. So, the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability says that the disabled person does not exist, but the person exists. The person that in front of a barrier might be in a position of disability. And also here the quotation from European Academy of Design. Good design enables, bad design disables. So the point is, the way we design the environment, our products or services, may generate inclusion or exclusion, which is a factor of relational unsustainability. And this is valid for many fields. We can think of migrants. What does it mean to have all together in a building block instead of distributing them in the city? And young people, what or the well-conceived gathering spaces fostering the sense of community is often lacking, or the elderly, sometimes forced to move to residential long care facilities. Then sometimes it is the technology itself that creates new barriers. We can think of the general digital gap generated by digital devices or services that are not designed in a user-friendly manner for those who are not digital natives, or the AI-based assistants that select the news to be shown on the landing page of a web browser based on the detection of the user's interest, often polarizing the public opinion around different views, one opposing to the other, that don't exist in reasonable debate. So, the perspective of integral ecology, the one that indicates a sustainable planets in terms of nature and humanity, reformulates the concept of of humanity and disability. A person may have limits, motor, visual, hearing, intellectual, relational limit. However, this does not automatically involve a disability. So this means that they seek to be cared for is society, not the person who is made disabled by barriers or unfit services. Today, with what we have, the idea of the accessible environment is the condition for an inclusive society. So we should work for a society where everyone, irrespective to their situation, do not meet social or physical barriers that limit their mobility and also their fulfillment as a person and as citizens.
Può parlare Sandy, you can speak. Go. Thank you.
Sandy?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. It is about sports. I want to introduce myself. I am Sandy Doyer Isla. I send my greetings from Peru, from the most ancient university of South America for 172 years. From the Universidad Mayor de San Marcos, which is the oldest of Latin America, founded here. The transcendence and the traditional step of San Marcos enabled us always to be there with such an important aspect, and one of these is sport. In Brazil, I made a postdoctorate, and I could understand the need for introducing sports from a social perspective, and that is precisely there that I could find a good word by Chiara that says that brotherhood goes away from, makes us distant from exclusion and makes easier the peaceful resolution of conflicts. So the need of peace emphasizes that brotherhood is not only a value, but it is a global paradigm. Starting from finding such a beautiful concept, I had to bind it with such a rich culture that we Americans have, and specifically an Andean culture, the culture of the Andes. From Europe, we imported university, but we have a very beautiful reality in this cultural aspect. We have a good living. All the indigenous populations of Latin America have something that Chiara expresses in a clear way: love, brotherhood, and the intercultural communication, and in this sense, how not to include in sports some relevant aspects, such as brotherhood, from the perspective of the Andean culture. Starting from this, we work with specific projects, because from sports, considering that sport has some conditionings, and sometimes there is an excessive competition, it seems, but it is not true. We think that by modifying some sport structure, we can give a great opportunity so that children or young person or adults can understand that there is brotherhood. So we are not talking about the teams competing with each other, but we say that these teams are part of myself in any moment. That is what is part of the Andean culture, that we call the Masintin, the affinity, and Yanantin, complementarity. we talk about MINC, voluntary community works. All these concepts are part of the Andean culture that are included within sports. So the children and young people who do sports understand the needs to clean the environment, to take care of the environment, because we in Latin America, as my colleagues from Argentina know very well, we come from a culture that loves nature, that takes care of nature. And today, more than ever, we have to search for strategies to take care of nature and get connected among all. And sports is a milestone that attracts young people. So, and in this perspective, from the university, this university chair, we don't want to teach sports for the sake of sports, but we wanted to inject into sports the substantial element called brotherhood, but not necessarily getting it out of the concepts, but including the cultural codes, which is not giving new concepts, but so that young people can understand that there is something more important than competition. There is a complementarity, there is a collective work that in the Andes region is called MINCA, this voluntary community work. And INI, work based on mutual help and reciprocity. So this intercultural dialogue that it is not necessarily only among people who live in Andes, but also between other people, those who are willing to understand each other and work together. So we have seen the key concepts of a sustainable relationship, and more we are understanding that nothing has a little value, but everything is interconnected. So sports is a substantial and crucial element that configurates and redesigns a new form, a new style of living and a new self-understanding. Young people do not have illusion. There are statistics on a global level in Americas where young people lost the sense of life, lost the meaning of life, because very often there are models out of reality. But if we apply the relational models with the cultural concept in the Andean community, we believe that this will help to contribute to understand each other. And we believe that sports will be a key element. So thank you for giving us this opportunity, and the best greetings from Lima, Peru. Thank you very much, Professor Isla. And now we give the floor to the next contribution.
Communication is fundamental
in the paradigm that proposes relational sustainability as an option to achieve an integral ecological quality of life. I invite you to see this image, to watch this image. Presenting this cartoon of Mafalda, a character known internationally almost as much as Messi, I'd say that I could leave since my task would be accomplished. Communication in all its languages has an incredible performative force. One of the greatest challenges in this area is the relationship between communication culture and technology. Since the 1960s, two perspectives have been introduced into communication sciences, brilliantly condensed by Umberto Eco in his article Apocalyptic and Integrated. On the one hand, we find the fascination for new tools, and on the other, a fierce criticism. The two perspectives provide aspects to consider in this debate. We need critical thinking and at the same time develop an appropriate use of technology to promote the encounter between people and human communities. There are many perspectives that consider communication as a common good of society and therefore seek this balance. Generative communication, communication for social change, dialogical communication, journalism of solutions, non-violent communication, communication and decolonialism, and communication and good living. These are some of the proposals in this direction. These currents, in many cases, have also integrated action with research. For decades, Latin America has offered alternative and community communication experiences. Different communities, starting from very precarious living conditions through the use of analog and digital media, managed to improve the living conditions of their territories, achieving in many cases a true integral development. The systematization of these experiences has given rise to the current of dialogical communication, which is supported by the theoretical reflection of Paulo Freire and Antonio Pasquali. This perspective is based on the criticism of the information model imposed by the mass media and proposes the creation of spaces that seek to protect and promote human rights. Communication is considered a cultural fact, and its mobilization has the imperative of giving voice to historically silenced sectors. For example, community radios were launched in the mines of Bolivia, where in addition to extracting the precious metal, a system of work close to slavery was imposed on the miners. Literacy courses were born that in Ecuador taught 17,000 indigenous people to read and write. Hundreds of experiences in Brazil and throughout Latin America that have accompanied the struggles of activists who seek to strengthen democracy in the region. In this perspective, the proposal of good living is placed, which has its origin in the culture of the Andean peoples of our region. According to Contreras, this vision of the world presupposes a cosmo-coexistence, which emphasizes the relationship together with four dimensions: cosmocentric, biocentric, where the center is life, ethnocentric, where the center is the human being, and ecocentric, where the center is nature. These movements continue today also dealing with digital. For example, the indigenous network of appropriation of artificial intelligence, because we are aware that this new technology with its dazzling lights hides the possibility of making minorities disappear from the symbolic universe. Martinez, taking up Pasquali's thought for communication policies, showed in a summarized way the meaning of his ideas, recovering relationality by valuing real human intersubjectivity. Imagine new social contracts that allow for greater participation, promoting social dialogue between all cultures, free the interlocution, ensure greater distributive justice in social communication. The model proposed by Pasquali articulates the different interests of the communicative field in a relational ethical perspective that promotes the crucial values of the person and the community, and for this reason can offer us a direction to add our efforts of cultural transformation according to the paradigm of relational sustainability. Thank you.
Allora ringraziamo Sandy, Isabel e Renzo per il loro contributo.
Thank you, Sandy, Isabel, and Renzo for their contributions. They were very interesting indeed, and Renzo underlined the fact that we need to walk in other people's shoes through the architecture as a factor of encounter and relationship. And from Sandy, we are remembering sport, which is a classic in the culture of the Andes, as Buen Vivir, which is also we are reminded of in Pope Francis's Laudato Si. We have another 3 contributions. I'm just going to ask whether we have any links active, or otherwise Edson Barbieri from Brazil. If he is not online, we can perhaps read it from here. And then we have Professor Alejandra Marinovic and Marina Stapia. So, is any of these active? If not, we will at least read the contribution by Professor Barbieri, which is in English, and we have this in English language, but I will read it in an Italian-sounding English, and therefore there is nothing to worry about. I see there is nothing new, so I will certainly read it here. This is Epson's contribution, and on we go.
Che lo abbiamo nel telefonino, adesso sapete bene che siamo dipendenti.
It's on our phones, you know, that we depend on this. Renzo has just told us the polarization coming from these social media, and we are truly dependent on them, but sometimes they are of use. Contribution of Professor Barbieri. This is ecological in nature, and it's called like this.
Integrating ecology and relational sustainability. E naturalmente non sarà così vivace come se lui fosse presente, il professor Barbieri, tra l'altro è una...
It won't be as lively as if he were here with us. He is a very interesting character and very one of the persons who is one of the scientists who is most influential in the world for what he does, but he's not.
Requires a deep understanding of the complex interactions between humans and the environment that surrounds them. In this context, ecology emerged as a fundamental pillar in the proposal of relational sustainability, offering valuable insights and essential tools to guide our action towards a more balanced and prosperous future. The contribution of natural sciences to relational sustainability is crucial. Ecology, in particular, the science that studies the interactions between organisms and the environment, provides a robust conceptual framework for understanding natural systems and their dynamics. It helps us recognize the intricate web of life and the delicate balances that sustain our planet's ecosystems. By understanding patterns of species distribution, food chains, energy and matter flows, we can make more informed decisions on how to conserve and manage our natural resources sustainability. It is important to emphasize that in ecology, nothing makes sense except in the light of evolution. Ecology offers us a unique perspective on life on Earth. It shows us how species adapted to the environment over time, developing characteristics that give them competitive advantages. By understanding evolutionary processes, we can appreciate the incredible diversity of life and recognize the intrinsic value of each organism. This leads us to adopt a more holistic and inclusive approach in our conservation efforts, recognizing that all species have an important role to play in global ecosystems. The contribution of ecology to the proposal of relational sustainability is essential for several reasons. First, it helps us recognize the interdependence between all living beings and the environment in which we live. By understanding that we are all connected in a vast web of life, we are encouraged to adopt practices that promote the health and resilience of ecosystems as a whole, rather than seeking short-term benefits for humans alone. Additionally, ecology provides us with powerful tools to predict and mitigate the impacts of global environmental changes. By studying how organisms respond to environmental disturbances, we can develop more effective strategies to address emerging challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem degradation. Ultimately, the contribution of ecology to the proposal of relational sustainability helps us build a fairer, more equitable and harmonious future for all forms of life on Earth. By recognizing our deep connection to the natural world and adopting an approach based on mutual respect and cooperation, we can work together to create a planet where all species can thrive. To achieve an ecologically balanced environment, we must first overcome poverty and inequality. But to do so, it is imperative to adopt a comprehensive approach that recognizes the interdependence between social, economic, and environmental issues. Through the lens of relational sustainability, we can better understand how to promote socio-economic systems that are aligned with the limits on the environment and the needs of all people. This requires investment in educational and training programs, ensuring equitable access to essential resources such as clean water and nutritious food, and fostering economic opportunities for marginalized communities. Additionally, public policies must address the structural roots of poverty and inequality, including the fair redistribution of resources and opportunities. By adopting a collaborative and holistic approach, we can forge a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive while protecting the ecosystem that sustain life on Earth. Ecco, questo era il contributo magistrale veramente del nostro Edson.
This was the masterful contribution of Edson, our ecological expert, and this is at the heart of what we are trying to say, and by retranslating it into Italian, I would say that this holistic and collaborative approach will allow us to have a future of opportunity for the ecosystems and also for persons. And this is the heart of the concept of sustainability. I ask the control room if there is any news about the other two link-ups. Otherwise, we will proceed with the next trio. And the next trio would be the one starting by Professor Barbaro, then Professor Frassinetti, and then Professor Arneodo. Frassinetti and Arneodo honor us of their presence here in person, so it's easy to imagine how they will speak. Professor Barbaro, I saw him, but here we have the contribution via Zoom. And so, on to the Zoom connection. The floor is yours.
Alejandra Marinovic, sì?
Sì, Alejandra, prego, prego.
Ecco, grazie. Buongiorno a tutti. Hola, buen día.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this invitation, for being here, this panel, and this scientific committee. Thank you, and best wishes to those who have put together this initiative. We will talk about economics and ethics. One of the main causes of the current climate crisis is the relationship of humans with technology, especially at this time of digital revolution and artificial intelligence, generative AI. This relationship can be inscribed within what is known of the technocratic paradigm. It is necessary to assess the role of this paradigm in society in order to hold a dialogue on sustainability and specifically relational sustainability. And for this reason, it is useful to refer to integral ecology. In chapter 4 of Laudato Si, Pope Francis speaks of the essential components of an essential ecology, an integral ecology, which includes integral human, social, and political dimensions. This ecology is intimately in relation with the concept of integral development, which bears fruit in a flourishing of humans in a harmonious relationship with the cosmos, where the relational dimensions have an important role. Climate crisis or social and environmental crisis feature in this situation, and the technological paradigm is its main cause, according to Pope Francis and many academics and members of civil society. The technocratic paradigm is a way of understanding the world so that human beings see in technology the solution to all their problems. There are three dimensions: technology, its governance and its domination on other ways of seeing the relationship of human beings with the cosmos. This paradigm places the idea of economic growth as infinite, posits this growth as infinite, and power is accumulated in few hands. The institutions deriving from the technocratic paradigm are politically excluding by nature, and they are bad for democracy. In this paradigm, we see ethical implications which are even deeper, both whether we see technology as a way of learning things and a way of proceeding in its fruition. If nature is an asset in itself, knowledge is mainly in the engineering field, and this means that any problem can be solved thanks to technical feasibility paradigms. Nature, understood in this way through technology, means that we enter into a perpetual desire of what is possible being good. If it's possible, it is good, and this becomes a technological imperative. This conception of infinite growth, especially for economists, is very familiar indeed. We are excluding the ethical dimension, which must be re-included. That is a reflection on the meaning of what we do. This ethical dimension has components which refer to rationality, particularly the idea of relationality and fraternity, which has a dimension which is more than personal. It is societal, community, and political, as the cosmos at its various levels. For example, it's not enough to be fraternal if the institution gathering these persons in a nation do not give value to fraternity. Quite the opposite. they harm democracy. From economics to ethics, therefore, to speak about the relational component of sustainability is indispensable because it is at the heart of the social and environmental.
Grazie alla professoressa Marinovic. E allora adesso fortunatamente abbiamo recuperato anche la professoressa Isabel Gatti, a cui diamo molto volentieri la parola.
Non è Isabelle, Maria Nives Tapia.
Oh, scusate, Maria Nives Tapia. Isabel ha già parlato. Prego Maria Nives, può cominciare.
Mi sentite?
Sì.
Can you hear me? So I want to share my screen, if possible. So, good morning and good afternoon from Buenos Aires. I will introduce the educational aspect. We know that in searching for taking care of a common home and building sustainable societies with a very human fraternal relationship plays an important role. We know that we all need, as UNESCO says, to learn learning. And in this sense, lifetime education that offer the media and the social network can be crucial. But in these few minutes, I would like rather to talk about the role that children and adolescents can play in this field. We often think that the role of school is only conveying the knowledge that has been accumulated in the previous generations, and we see the new generations especially as recipes of our teaching and accompaniment. But the new generations, in fact, can be, if we accompany them in the proper way, protagonists, main characters of our common home, and contribute to our education with their example, with their good example. And now, I want to share my screen showing some images. So it is not sufficient to celebrate in school the Day of the Earth, the Day of the Planet, etc., and educate to contents having to do with ecology and sustainability. Because, it is important to have green schools, because we need schools that give the opportunity to learn how we do recycling, how we take care of nature within the school. But what we learned through the pedagogics of service learning is that we can do much more. We can put the creativity and the energy of children and adolescents and young people much beyond their institutional role, and this has contributed to solve the problems, territorial problems. So, everything that is based on projects for learning. I don't know if you can see my screen. Can you see the images on the screen? I don't have time to share the pedagogical theory of service learning, but I want to share some concrete experiences of schools and universities from different parts of the world that are putting into practice these pedagogics. These images refer to a Patagonic school in Patagonia, in the south of Argentina, where they learn how they can do the reforestation of a forest destroyed by a wildfire. Because of climate changes, there are many fires in summer. So the children of primary school and maternal school, they give their contribution with their green garden, and some operators of the parks help them. And today they give their contribution for the reforestation of the forest. Now, still about service learning, another experience. I am trying to go ahead with my slides. In this case, it is a small school in La Puna, which is a high altitude area at the border between Argentina and Bolivia in the north. And this arid region, there are shepherds who mainly eat potatoes. And the Inca culture of the greenhouse was recovered in order to recover food that the children didn't know before. So the families are stimulated to produce more vegetables and cultivate and produce more vegetables. And in the last 20 years, the food habits of the whole community was improved. Also, they generated an oasis in this region of La Puna as a way to fight, to oppose climate change, and also to generate a better quality of life for the members of the community and turn their town into a garden of La Puna. And last but not least, we have another experience of a university in Colombia, where the students of economy put into practice this service learning with coffee cultivation in a region of Colombia that was seriously affected by the civil war, and it is difficult to cultivate coffee there. So the students help these small producer to produce high-quality coffee and have better prices for their coffee. And also the students of marketing and design, they made a plan, a business plan for them, proposing to sell this coffee directly to end consumers without passing through the intermediaries, who are those who earn the most, make the most profit. So this coffee can be found in the campus of the university, where they drink this coffee. And so from the field to the campus, and this trademark improved the quality of life of these Colombian communities, and it is also a way to improve their study. I want to conclude with a sentence by Pope Francis. He said, we are not going to change the world if you do not change education. So, by turning the new generations into protagonists, we can do both things at the same time, to change education, to change the world. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Tapia. A beautiful intervention with this block of interventions. Certainly the one of Professor Marinovic was about economics. Economics is a challenge that is essential because it will be more convenient to work on environment with a different approach. Also very stimulating when she mentioned artificial intelligence. You know that Nobel Prize to Physics was given for artificial intelligence. So maybe we should do the next meeting about the ecology of artificial intelligence. Very interesting was calling the attention of the Pope to this paradigm. So we can learn a lot from what Professor Tapia said. She said that she had no time to explain her pedagogical theory, but her intervention was her contribution was very deep, and it emphasized the protagonism of the new generations, which is important because many people say we must think of these, but Professor Tapia has shown us how the new generations can act today in a very effective way. So now we have another block of 3 interventions. We have Professor Barbaro Frassinetti and Arneudo. So we begin with the online contribution of Professor Sergio Barbaro. And Frassinetti and Arneudo can come here and sit on the stage meanwhile. Please, Sergio. Good evening. Thank you, Stefania. Thank you, Luca. I am Sergio Barbaro. I am a lawyer and I'm a teacher of compared legal systems in Sofia and also person responsible of an academic structure. The topic of sustainability in law is very topical and very wide and should be used going beyond a certain trend, because very often this term is used in a vague way and without a real content. So we must give a content to the concept of sustainability. And to make it substantial to this term sustainability, I want to leave with the Latin root of the term that derives from Latin sustenere, that means to sustain, to support, to maintain. But to support what? And what is supported? So from a juridical point of view, the answer is quite clear. These are the subjects, the persons or the legal persons and communities that support other people or other communities, and in a special way they support the future generations. This relational vision of sustainability is not something very new. We find it in a very important international legal source, an international convention, the Rio Declaration of 1992. The Rio Declaration of 1992 is a binding norm, and in Article 3 it stated that states are committed to enact environmental protection policies for future generations. And this Rio Declaration is still very topical, and we should read it many times, but it remained a bit abstract, a bit not just on the paper. And the concept of sustainability is often used as a slogan. So, in terms of norms for Latin America, even if there are people who are more expert than I do, the protection of environment for the future generations can be ensured by personifying nature and rivers and lakes and the other natural resources. So, giving to the nature and to natural resources the dress of legal persons, fictio juris, that is to pretend that these resources and nature themselves are legal bodies that have a certain personality, so they can exercise rights through the people who belong to that community or to that state or to that territory. And this is a very interesting tool. And in Europe, you cannot, you know that the German law is very important in Europe. So, legal persons can be men or women or companies. Companies cannot be a natural resource, of course. So for many this is is a problem that cannot be overcome. So in order to protect the natural resources against a clear loss of sustainability in the future, so to protect the future generations, we cannot apply this fictio. So European legislators are trying to find a solution by entering into many norms. The concept of sustainability meant as a need to protect the environment, the future generations, and guarantee the common good. So, these can be found in the very recent norms that the European Union approved, and in particular with the directive, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive 2022/2464 EU. So that company should not just be a company, but have to integrate their activity with the protection of common good and the environment. And that's something innovative that is meeting great resistance. In fact, this directive only has been addressed to the state, and it applies to companies with more than 45,000 euro of turnover, and this norm was cancelled in the final draft because the big companies of the European market did not want it. And what was so innovative? It is because it provided for the need to take care by the executives and administrators with the community of reference, with the environment, and with the future generations. And this imperative of care had to be implemented through a long-term policy in order to guarantee that the companies could be able to respect through their policies the environment for those who will come after. And this duty to take care by the directors, by the executives, was cancelled because it was considered invasive, too vague, and opposite to the traditional aim of companies, which is that of making profits. But the way has been traced. So the European Union is going towards this new model, new business model, where we cannot pretend that a company moves within a community we cannot pretend it does not move within a system based on value and relationship. So thank you for listening and this was my presentation. Thank you. So we give the floor to Professor Frassinetti.
Grazie Luca. Sono Alberto Frassinetti, dopo una laurea in ingegneria nucleare.
I'm Alberto Frassinetti. I worked in nuclear engineering and I've worked in industry as a director, and for 24 years I've been a consultant for company redesigning, and I am following a doctorate on community discernment at Sofia University. This is my professional experience, particularly one of my last 17 years, where I was in touch with a group of organizations which are organizations serving a charism, who, within the context of the Catholic Church, carry forward those gifts that people receive for the good of humanity. And the work with this kind of organization, trying to move the slides. Here we are. Very good.
The work which I want to present was born of the need to have a model directing the change of these organizations towards a present which should fall in line with reality and a sustainable future also for the new generations coming within these organizations. This is a model which perhaps did not bear only in mind the economic side, but especially the charism, for example, the values, the relationships, and also the points of reference, such as the church in our case. What are organizations serving a charism? Just two words. They have specific qualities. Their aim is not profit or reaching a material objective such as an NGO. The kernel is made up of persons who choose to give their life for that organization, and these organizations have a multicultural dimension and they are intergenerational in makeup. And there are people who often are not chosen on the basis of their management competence, and there are various interpretations as to how to incarnate this charism. Therefore, we needed a model talking about sustainability and not about objectives, and that's all. Sustainability is a dynamic condition able to satisfy both the current needs of persons who live within the umbrella of this charism, and for the future, those who will arrive. I identified 4 dimensions: charismatic sustainability, which is relating to the charism, to its values, to the reason why the organization was founded in the first place, an ecclesial sustainability, which is a contribution to the reference point of these organizations, but also the concrete contribution to society. Relational sustainability, including all the relationships among the persons of the organization and their communities, and specifically governance, leadership style, and more. And finally, economic sustainability, which looks to the economic balance within which the care for the environment finds place. Because in my experience, if you wish to look after the environment, unless you cost this in your budget, it won't happen. The idea was that of linking this sustainability not in a formula which adds them, but which multiplies them, to say that total sustainability of the organization is the multiplication of these 4 sustainabilities, and therefore, if one of these is missing, the product is 0. We can tell the story as we like, but this is basically what it means. This model is a management and analytical model, allowing us to
grasp the presence of a management oriented towards total sustainability and partial sustainability. For example, we can go and look at relative balances. One example for these organizations, work which does not produce revenue but absorbs revenue because it might be sustaining a work of the charism if the resources then can be transferred from one portion of the organization to the other. And here is the theme of the resilience of the organization, not how it performs, but the ability to deal with situations. All four sustainabilities need to be considered, aside from how much one is developed and how wide, how broad its field is. Otherwise, the result would be zero. And one of the components of sustainability will produce a multiplying effect on the other ones. Sustainability needs to be studied not so much as a development, meaning to grow, and to grow more, but flourishing one's gift in relation to the common good. There are many cases where this model is applied in processes of redesigning organizations, institutions serving an international charism, and in their strategic plans as well. It is easy to see that we can extend this model to organizations and to the third sector as well as the profit one. If we replace what is charismatic with value and what is ecclesial with social, and we get this formula which says that total sustainability is value, social, relational, and economic sustainability. And we are also working on a model with only three sustainabilities, where social sustainability is within the value sustainability because it is the engine behind the action. And I come to my final consideration. What does relational sustainability have in this organizational model? I hope I said this through this simple formula. Organizations serving a charisma, and organizations in general, are very complex in their nature, and we don't resolve complexity. We live in it, we transform it, we cross it, we live with it, and transformations take place through the legs of men and women. They inhabit the hearts of men and women, and these are people who interact through relationships. This is why relational sustainability in an organization cannot be changed. It's not a way to resolve things. It's a way to manage complexity in a way that we look to the future in hope. Thank you. Thank you, Alberto. Mille grazie.
Prendo anch'io il puntatore. Grazie. Grazie, un saluto a tutti, ai presenti.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
E a quelli online.
Those who are here and those who are online.
Sono medico, sono specialista.
Mille grazie, Aldeodo. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a specialist in neurophysiopathology, and I work in Rome in a rehabilitation center for persons who have neurodevelopmental issues. And this is my field of investigation. I'm going to talk about medicine as a discipline. The enormous scientific developments also in medicine have given us unexpected progresses with new drugs and diagnostic technologies which are more complex and expensive. At the same time, many people still die due to foreseeable and preventable causes such as sufficient access to clean water, lack of hygiene, and bad lifestyle. Even in rich countries, the reduction of public resources now ensure that countries re-budget costs, and this means that prices are higher, time frames are longer, and it's the organizational model which wins above the population. Demographics and extraordinary events such as the pandemic, the war, the environmental emergency are putting strain on the system. One urgent challenge for medicine today is to integrate sustainability, social equality, and assistance which is based around the person. In this context, we develop a work which is more than 10 years old, and its relationship made with various parties, and it's an international network with professionals in the healthcare sector coming from many backgrounds and many countries. The work was summarized. This is HDC, Health Dialogue Culture. The work was summarized, we were saying, in an ethical charter for medicine today. This is what we called it, which identifies in giving value to relationship a pivotal point to create a U-turn in the management of healthcare, from clinical context to scientific research to healthcare organization. The charter was presented academically and was published in a book which was published by the Italian National Council for Research. It's not a final document, it's an open book for reflections and further experimenting. Recommendations are based on some shared principles: common good, respect for human beings, relationality, which means a dialogue among people, but also among structures and organizations which are represented by peace people, reciprocity, where both parties are open to an interest in encounter as people, some preview of the content and how medicine can contribute to relational sustainability. Illness and limitations offer the opportunity to build authentic relationship between healthcare worker and patients, and in some cases this might include also the network of social relationships surrounding them. This gives a meaning to the illness and can be therapeutic even for healthcare workers. Another taster, the spiritual dimension. This is an integrating part of the human being, and it can have a substantial influence on the quality of life, on satisfaction and results of care. One more. Both the personal context and the social and cultural context of every person should be borne in mind and supported. We know how health contributes in an important way to economic growth and the social well-being of our populations. Therefore, the healthcare needs to be considered strategic for this context, and all healthcare workers, patients, citizens should be active subjects in care and placed in a condition to have a role even in planning new policies and healthcare services. In brief, we could say the summary of the whole charter is that reciprocity, along with the care for ecosystems, can become a founding element and help the birth of new social healthcare systems. Thank you, Maria Grazia.
So, this is the last contribution. We can take suggestions. Sergio focused on the future generations, and this concept of giving legal personality to moral entities is very stimulating. He's directing a thesis in which I'm helping him to give a legal configuration to the future bodies. Alberto tried to create a dialogue between heterogeneity and put the environment in the balance sheet in a way. And we thank Maria Grazia for opening perspective, the disease as an opportunity for building authentic relations. And now we are going to the last three pair. We have Alejandra Herrero. Then we have Angelo Lessi. We invite him to take a seat here at the stage. And then we have Professor Calvo Quiros. So these three professors. So we begin with Alejandra Herrero, who is connected online. So, good evening. We are here in Alta Gracia, Córdoba. I greet all those who are connected. My name is Alejandro Herrero. I am an agriculture engineer. I did master and doctorate in environmental health, and I worked many years as a professor in the University of Buenos Aires, and the topic is the relationship between environment and the livestock production. Today I want to talk about the bond between a scientific bond and sustainable relationship. So how the present models of management of knowledge limit the contribution of politics to relational sustainability. If we think of the process of creation of knowledge, we can see that in most cases there are processes connected to traditional research, which is fragmented and multidisciplinary and tends to distort the problem to be solved and generates a knowledge that is widespread in patents and reaches the community, but is not felt as something that belongs to us, and it has only a short-term impact. We see in the diagram that solidarity researchers generate knowledge that are spread into society, having a society need, but he gets used to receive knowledge, and in a way he pays for that. These traditional patterns cannot respond to complex problem. So from a multidisciplinary, holistic, relational and integral perspective, with a new vision, the incorporation of a proposal of research that includes a process of investigation and participative action, and wants to generate a process of collaboration and research and new relationship between different stakeholders. This situation enables to transform the social realities to adapt sustainable rationality in order to have long-term relationship process. We can see how researchers and the community in a process to do together and to do with by generating bonds that promote brotherhood and sustainability.
Es entonces que acá hay una gráfica, por eso me preocupaba que ustedes pudieran ver la presentación, ¿no?
So, I want you to see this example take from my milk-producing livestock. You know, animals produce waste that come from 90% of what they eat and drink, and they expel pathogenic elements that can have an impact on the quality of water. And we can observe a multiple relationship between the different sectors, and that is so how can we solve this, starting from a complex process of investigation where the relationship is not always holistic. Then in the traditional study, we can see the quality of water and its uses, and the study of the health issue. And these models make us to the scenarios we have talked before. These partners bring sustainable models. One difficulty is the understanding of the objects that are intrinsically complex. Another is the long time of implementation. Another is interdisciplinary review among peers and the promotion of the harmonization of local values, which is a difficult to change. And also some proposals are being developed with pre-requirements that are difficult. Also, there is no space for interdisciplinary approach. So what can we do? Among the proposals, we have changes with institutional policy, with a revision of institutional quality, projects associated to regional projects, governance and matrix in the research of a space for a participative action with the community, participated assessment with all the stakeholders, including the members of the community, to guarantee the sustainability of the outcome, development of specific indicators for the evaluation, and new spaces with a systemic revision, and to privilege the networking. These changes might achieve some results, like a creation of comparative knowledge to give transferable solutions, valuing of social capital and the capital of the community, intended as a set of values such as trust and cooperation, and equality that is needed for a good reciprocal collaboration. And favor connection between stakeholders. We need a systematic effort that wants to reinforce the existing network by promoting a culture centered on attention to the problem of society that faces them from a scientific technological point of view, also the political, social and cultural aspects, and guarantee the transmission of knowledge. And all these result sustainable relational sustainability is included in all these. So now we are going to listen to Angelo Alessi. So my title is Sustainable Relationship versus Narcissism. So there is narcissistic solipsism that is quite dangerous. Everything is based on organizations. Even simple cells distinguish between good nutrition and bad nutrition. And human beings are the rings of the chain that today risks to destroy this to self-organization. We find climate change, exploitation of resources, and humans prevail on the other human beings. So there are two modes in the way to relate oneself to the world and to others. A relational sustainability, which is based on reciprocity with a bilateral vision, and the narcissistic attitude, which means I am there and the others are at my service. All human beings are reduced to objects who are used with a sense of almightiness. Reciprocity in relationship is in the fact that the action of the one corresponds to the action of the other. So I can see in the relationship between environment and the individual, and about relationship between persons. So we understand there is a strong connection between the pro-environment attitude and the pro-social attitude. A connection that is necessarily based on respect and intersubjectivity and relationship. We can say that the life of human beings is dictated by all the processes that require a constant dynamic balance between order and chaos, between the push to breaking and the connection between stability and change. The capacity to remain integrated helps us to respect priority and reconcile the opposite. In this way, we favor a natural adaptation, social adaptation. Then let us think of the irrational abuse of natural resources, the heating, global heating, the unjust distribution, unequal distribution of wealth. So, what does it mean? Every living system is made up of different subsystems. These subsystems play specific roles and follow specific rules. With the different animal and vegetal species, by differentiating, find a balance, a dynamic balance, and a way to integrate with each other. We can think of the idea of a food chain. If we think of humans as one of the many subsystems that are part of the more complex systems of the planet, then it is clear the need to see them integrated not only in the aspects of their own intimate aspects of personality, but also with other humans and with the environment where they live. On the other hand, we have the narcissistic attitude that is based on a fragmented and irrational vision of the lifestyle, human lifestyle, of the other people and of the environment. An anthropocentrism that exploits the earth while it should make room to a sustainability of living beings that recognize they are interdependent. The illusion that we can have everything and do everything in the clinical framework of narcissistic is turned into a doubt, mortification, digression, and very often into a sense of emptiness. They hope to find themselves in the gaze of others, but they're used as object for their own selfishness. Even the exploitation of the planet emphasizes the predatory attitude that is going to meet destruction sooner or later. What are the reasons that prevent to recognize the meaning of a limit, which would guarantee concrete action for the defense of social coexistence? So I believe, first of all, the idea that others have to change their point of view, others have to set a limit, others have to change their behavior. And even more, like in the Titanic, the ship is drawing, but everybody is reckless and they enjoy the resources on board. And the solution of the problems is entrusted to others, maybe to politicians, which is a clear denying attitude of denial. So let's go back to the conclusion. we say that if the principle of relationality, of reciprocity fails, then what comes out is a sense of danger, because we risk to get into pathology and self-destruction. So we have to revise the way to manage the resonance between us and the world by feeding bonds of relational, mutual relations among all. Thank you. So, thank you, Angelo. I hope we have William online, and we have we give him the floor.
Io non sento adesso.
Adesso?
Sì, adesso sì.
Benissimo. Ciao, mi chiamo William Calvo, sono professore di sociologia.
I'm William Calvo. I'm a professor of sociology in Department of American Culture in the University of Michigan. I was born in Costa Rica, but I live in the United States.
To discuss an issue that affects all of us. That affect all of us, the environmental crisis. But more importantly, for recognizing the imperative that we can only approach this situation with an intersectional and relational framework. This is, I believe, our greatest contribution. When we think about the environment image of melting ice cap, polluted air, and deforestation may come to our mind. But the roots of this problem run more deeply than just the natural world. They are fundamental tied to human behavior, social structure, and cultural values. This is where sociology, because this is part of my intervention, and the study of sociology and society and social behavior become crucial. Sociology helps us understand that environmental problems are not just technical issues that can be solved only with better technology or strict regulations. They are deeply social problems grounded in people's beliefs, ideologies, as well as social and historical issues. The choices we make about energy consumption, waste, or transportation are influenced by social norms, economical systems, and political power. All of these are human-made. We learn systems. Society digs beneath the surface to explore how these human factors drive environmental degradation, and importantly, how they can help us to find solutions. While we often hear about the science of greenhouse gases, sociology puts us to think in questions like, why is it so hard for people to change their behavior? Why do people resist them? Even when it's so obvious. Clearly, using frameworks of ignorance are not appropriate or sufficient to help us understand what is happening. But other questions like, why do some communities suffer more than others from the impact of climate change? These questions help us to see social inequalities that make certain groups, often the most poor and less responsible from the problem, to bear most of the environmental harm. Understanding these dynamics is essential for creating fair and effective policies that address the needs of all, not just those who are more privileged. Here I think we're thinking just beyond the normal justice, but toward a model of mutual care. Sociology also examines how cultural attitudes shape our relationship with the environment. different societies view nature in different ways. Some see it as a resource to be exploited, while others see it as a secret. This belief influences how we treat the planet. By studying cultural values and social practices, sociologists help us identify ways to shift how people think and how can we change their behavior. Moreover, sociology highlights the power structures that perpetuate environmental harm. Large corporations, for example, have significant influence over government policies, frequently prioritizing profit over ecological health. By understanding this power dynamic, we can better advocate for system change that hold powerful actors accountable and promote environmental justice. In short, sociology provides a lens through which we can understand the environment crisis. Understand that the environment crisis is not just a problem with our relation with nature, but it's a problem of society. It enables to see the connection between human actions and environmental consequences, empowering us to push for transformation and social change toward a different and a better future for everybody. Thank you.
Grazie al professor Calvo. Siamo arrivati all'ultima carrellata.
Thank you, Professor Calvo. This is the last one, and we thank Alejandra for her contribution, and I will highlight especially her underlining of scientific politics and the concept of collaborative creation seems very stimulating to me. And we also thank Professor Alessi for his insight into the link between the pro-social and pro-environmental idea. Narcissists have doubts. If narcissist humanity were more doubt-prone, perhaps things would be more useful. And the last one, William, spoke to us exactly about this. He is a sociologist of resistance to change, and what he said was very important in terms of giving equal opportunity to all the inhabitants of the planet today. We are much beyond where we should be, as often happens, and therefore we are now going to have a break, and we will connect up again at 5:10 Italy time. Thank you to those who are following us with patience and difficulty online. We know that. Thank you.